Welcome, everybody, to the Huddle, KGUN9 streaming sports talk show. We come to you every single Tuesday with KGUN9 sports director Jason Barr, joined by our main news anchor and longtime top-notch sportscaster, Pat Parris. Pat, good afternoon. How are you today?
Thanks, Jason. I'm good. After that introduction, I feel pretty good.
Well, I do my best. Hey, it's game week. Arizona football.
Game week.
Finally. Yep, we've been waiting for this all summer. They're going to play NAU on Saturday night. And, of course, Pat, when we talk about Arizona against NAU, it's going to conjure up some bad memories from a couple of years ago. Here it is. When NAU came to Arizona Stadium and won, I think it was 21-19.
Yep.
I don't believe that was the game in which the screen pass Will Plummer threw the interception.
No,
that was a different game.
That was a different game.
But this game had its moments as well. Certainly U of A could not move the football, but this is a much different U of A football team than the one 2 years ago. And we're going to hear a little soundbite from head coach Jed Fish on that. And Pat, we're going to have you react on the other side.
Okay.
Realized what a rebuild it was going to be. We talked about all year one. We called it year zero for a reason. We felt like we had to strip it down to the studs, start building it back up. I do believe we're in a good spot this year going into this game and recognizing that 2 years ago, it's certainly a different team.
Pat, just mathematically, in 2 years, half the roster is going to turn over. But in this case, a lot more than that has for Arizona.
Well, and here's what you have to remember. Arizona, more than doubled NAU's yardage that night 2 years ago. Do you remember that?
I forgot about that. In a lot of those losses, they did actually outgain the other team.
They outgained them by almost double. I think it was double.
But you also have to know how to win.
Well, that's it.
Carroll, the offensive coordinator, said today in the news conference they didn't know how to win.
And how do you win? Well, the first thing you have to do is start finishing drives. And remember, that was the real issue 2 years ago, and we saw some of it continue last year on a much smaller scale. They didn't finish drives. Will Plummer moved them between the 20s, but they didn't ever get in the end zone. But they scored 19 points, but you get the point. They did not finish drives, and that cost them in that game. And that was what's so frustrating is even 2 years ago, Arizona had more talent than NAU. They just didn't put it all together. They just couldn't sustain anything as far as the drive goes to finish it. But it's a different team. It's a different look. If this game's close, then it's you might want to say, what's going on? If this one is close like it was 2 years ago.
I think if it's close early, the Wildcats will break it open pretty quickly.
Could very well be, should be. That's the way it should go. And I understand why it was a struggle 2 years ago. And I know what Jed Fish is saying. Well, that's when we knew it was going to be a tough rebuild. Well, I still don't think you lose to NAU. I've never really gotten over that. I'm just going to give you a free pass. We saw a lot of things where they could have won that game and they didn't. He had to learn as a head coach. Every single player that was on that team had to learn. And as you said, they talked about it today. They need to learn how to win. I think they've started to learn how to win, but we'll see. That's really got to be the difference maker this year is those close games going Arizona's way instead of the other way around.
It wasn't the low point of the 20-game losing streak, I don't think. It was one of the now seldom talked about low points of the losing streak. I think that Arizona is going to take it to NAU this week pretty badly, but not from a revenge type of view or anything like that. Very few players are left from that team. The reason why I think Arizona is going to really take it to NAU in this game is because I think these players want to show how good this team is this year. And I think that's what the real motivation is this year. Much more so on defense and offense too, and we'll get to that in a second. But that's how I see this Saturday playing out. Not so much Arizona beating up on NAU on revenge, but beating up on them to show how good this year's team is and this year's roster.
Well, it's that old adage or that old saying we always talk about. You get so tired of beating up on each other during spring ball, then you do it all fall camp long. They've been going at it for a few weeks now. So you want to play against somebody, and you schedule these games for a reason, Jason. You don't play Mississippi State the first week; you play them the second week. So you've got to take care of business. And I think you're right. I think they're going to want to come out and they're going to want to show that they're a much improved team, that they're on an upward trajectory, and they're not just going to, fall off or stay the same, that this team is certainly building towards something.
So the offense was much improved in 2022, sixth in the nation in passing yards, but the defense took a step backward. This is a revamped defense that is much bigger, much better at linebacker. Today we heard from Bill Norton, the defensive lineman who came from Georgia, two-time defending national champion, a transfer, didn't play much for Georgia, but hey, it's tough to make that Georgia defensive line. That's an NFL factory. He has been practicing with the number ones, so he's expected to start this week. Linebacker, you got Justin Flo, and I believe his name is pronounced Daniel Haimela, the other linebacker, along with Jacob Manu. Those are the three linebackers who are going to play. Manu was here last year. He's a guy
Played well last year
on the scout team, was so good, became a starter later in the year, just a little undersized, but a terrific player. And Flo is the transfer from Oregon. And I believe Haimela, if I'm saying his name correctly, is the transfer from Washington. So they're much improved defensive line and at linebacker, and it's a much bigger defense, Pat.
Yeah, and I think, I think that's the unit I think is going to take the biggest step. We all love the offense. We love the fact that they've got some star receivers, and we'll talk more about that in a minute. But I think defense has to be better. I think it will be better, and I think you look across the board, especially that front four, and then you mentioned the linebackers as well. It's a different group. It's been reworked. The transfer portal has helped tremendously on this defensive side of the football. You may love or hate the transfer portal. I think people probably have a love-hate relationship with the transfer portal. They can love it and hate it at the same time. But this is one of the upsides of that transfer portal is I think Jed Fish worked the defensive side of things when maybe the year before he worked the offensive side of the transfer portal. And now I think we're going to see much improvement coming up, even starting on Saturday.
Yeah, no, that's interesting about the love-hate of the transfer portal, because it's definitely something that Fish used for sure, and they use this year as well. And right away with the quarterback situation with Delora and how much that improved the team, and now you have it this year, like I said, with the linebacker situation. Also interesting that Martell Irby was named a co-captain, so he's going to be, I believe, a starting defensive back. We don't get the depth chart till Thursday,
Right.
but they hinted that Irby could play a little bit on offense as well, which was kind of interesting. And you may see him on special teams, so maybe he's going to be doing some kick returns. We'll see about Irby.
He's a talent.
Yeah.
He's got potential. So maybe that's what it is. You see, sometimes guys even surprise coaches or impress coaches to the point where they're like, hey, we got to get this guy on the field as much as we can, and maybe that's the situation.
Yeah, so he's going to be a co-captain. He was a defensive back from UCLA last year, someone who had medically retired, but then unretired and knows Johnny Nansen from UCLA. So Irby's going to help at defensive back, and they lost Jackson Turner, who transferred to UNLV. But there's more additions than subtractions, on this defense and on this team. All right, so I don't think we can don't need to wait any more time, Pat. We can go with the over-under for Arizona football this year is 5 wins. Now, I don't want to say I told you so, but I told you so. I got it right last year. I'm allowed to brag a little bit. I said last year they were going to be 5-7. They were 5-7. I will take the credit. Okay, thank you. And so we'll make our picks for this year. I've been thinking about this a little bit, and I'm going to go with 7-5. By the way, the over-under this year is 5. Listen, don't take betting advice from me, but I feel really good about the over. I do. I really do. I'm not being a homer. Trust me. Pat knows I will knock the Arizona teams when they need to be knocked. I will. If they thought they were going to win 3 games this year, I would say so. This is an improved team. I'm going with 7-5. If I'm wrong and they're not 7-5, I'm not bullish enough. That means they'll be 8-4, but I'm not going there. I'm going to go with 7-5, and that's my prediction for this year, with an outside chance of them being 4-0 after 4 games. I don't think that's going to happen. I don't think they're going to win at Mississippi State, but they've got an outside shot at being 4-0 after 4 games, because not only do they have NAU, but they've got UTEP, and At Stanford,
Stanford,
which
yeah.
I believe only won one game last year.
Yeah.
Correct me if I'm wrong.
Yep, that's
Okay,
right.
but they've got the at Mississippi State with a new coach. That's going to be a tough game. You can make the case, oh, Mississippi State, they might be looking ahead to that LSU game the next week. Well, we'll get to that, but I don't want to keep rambling here, Pat. I'm going with 7-5. What is your prediction for Arizona football this year?
First, I want to say you were right with the 5 and 7. I said 4 wins last year. You said 5. You were
You're
right.
almost right there.
I wasn't far off. I was hopeful that they would win more games. Remember, they only won one game the year before that, so it was a big improvement. I think the improvement will be there, but I just don't know that the improvement in the number of wins is going to be there. I'm going to go 6 and 6. I'm one of those people that looks at the schedule and I pick it and say, okay, I got 6 wins, I got 6 losses. You and I both know they may win a game they're not supposed to win, but they'll probably lose a game they're supposed to win. So that's why I have them at 6.
And that's why I've tempered down to 7 and 5.
And I hope you're right. 7 and 5 would be a terrific step up from where we were 2 years ago to last year to this year. 6 still gets you a bowl game though, Jason. And I think that's the ultimate goal of this team is make steady progress. Some years it might be slower than others. It might not be a meteoric rise, but I think 6 and 6 is a better than the odds makers say it's going to be, but maybe not quite as lofty as you are. I still have questions about learning how to win and finding the ways to win and all those
little lack of execution in the scrimmage.
Yep. That kind of thing, that's maybe we're past the interceptions on a screen pass, but there's something else that's going to probably rear its ugly head somewhere that we're going to be like the hand over face emoji at some point.
The unknown unknowns.
I have a feeling that you'll get at least one of these text-wise for me during the game, Jason.
The unknown unknowns.
Yeah.
Well, I'll if it's on the play calling, yes. I don't mean the play calling, the play situation ahead of time. Like, no, kick the field goal here.
Yeah, right.
Just take the 3 points.
Yeah.
Just like Curtis Chin at the Bay Area. Just take those 3 points to start the series. That's what I was saying at the time. But yeah, okay. All right. So very good. So we're just kind of where we were last year. I was a game ahead of you. I was right last year. Maybe you're right this year. I hope we're both wrong, and I hope they're 8 and 4.
Great.
I was talking with Justin Spears, the beat writer today, and he for the paper, and he was saying 6th floor, 8 ceiling. I kind of like that.
Yeah, I like that,
especially because I went 7 and 5, so I'm right in the middle.
You're right in the middle. We're both in that range. Right. I think what we fail to realize, or we haven't mentioned, I think you and I realize it, and I hope the astute Wildcat fans realize it. The Pac-12 is really good this year. Now, it's not the Big Ten. It's not the SEC. I'm not saying that. The Pac-12 is really good this year.
Yeah, but Pat, they've got games against Stanford, ASU, and Colorado.
Yes.
And you know what? I thought Colorado was going to be decent just because of Coach Prime coming in.
Yeah.
And then they show the fight.
Yeah.
The Colorado team fight. And then people were like, if you saw on social media, people were like, that roster looks a little small. I'm like, it looks small to me too. That roster looks a little smallish to me.
Here's, as I finish my point about being good, here's the stretch, Jason, and they always seem to hit for whatever reason, the schedule makers, it just at Arizona, it's not Arizona that did it, but the Pac-12 never does them a favor. They hit a stretch starting September 30th where they have to play here against number 10 Washington. Then they're at number 6 USC. These are the preseason rankings. They're at Washington State. Now, a winnable game, but Washington State at home is no pushover. Then they're here for number 18 Oregon State. Then they're here for UCLA. Then they go to Colorado. Then Utah is here. So in other words, if you start racking up some losses and some injuries and all of a sudden you're struggling and you win one of those 1 or 2 of those 6 games, then you're at 6 and 6. That's why I looked at it that way.
Yeah. And your 6 and 6 is a 4 and 6, right? Because you're assuming they're going to beat NAU and UTEP.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah. So you're at 4 and 6.
So they're going to lose to Mississippi State probably. That's a game where Mississippi State is going to be sky high.
It's their second game, though.
It's their second game, but
they have a cupcake before. So
exactly. But this will be their first Power 5 game, and they're
they won't underestimate Arizona because they saw them last year.
That's right. They played them last year.
So,
it was a closer game than they probably thought it was going to be. But the Mississippi State was never in real jeopardy in that game. But I think Arizona gave them a game. That's for sure. So we'll see. That's why they play, Jason. We could be completely wrong. You might be right with your 4-0.
No,
I
I'm
don't
not
know.
saying they're going to go 4-0. I'm saying they come home 4-0. I believe that's a home game, the 5th game of the season, after winning at Stanford. And you'll have a little bit of buzz in Arizona Stadium with a 4-0 team.
You would with a ranked Washington team coming in.
Yeah, that's Washington. Yeah,
Yeah.
there'll be a little buzz in the stadium for that. You can only hope. So, all right. So very good. All right. I figure we'll spend just a minute here again on Taylor Swift. No, I'm just kidding.
No.
For those who weren't with us last week, we had a little fun with the Taylor Swift concert. I thought we'd spend a minute though on ASU, just because they've got the bowl ban. Pat, it seems like they're doing what almost Arizona basketball did effectively a few years ago, which was be like, hey, listen, let's just get this out of the way for recruiting. Let's get this out of the way on a year. We're probably not going to be that good anyway. Let's self-impose the bowl ban so we don't have to deal with it later on. That was my gut reaction when I first saw the ASU self-imposed one year bowl ban. Your thoughts on that?
Well, and really, it's the U of A. Well, it's not their playbook. It's kind of the athletic director playbook. When you get NCAA investigations going on, the first thing you do is you put some kind of a self-imposed ban on, whether it be postseason tournament for basketball, or in this case, a bowl game in football. And then if you're at that point, there's not much else you can do. You fire the coach. And in the case of Herm Edwards, the stuff was swirling last year. They weren't playing well, kind of lost the team, whatever, the reasons they fire Herm, after 3 games, I think it was. And then, you look back at what happened with Sean Miller. Yeah, it came to the point where, if we fire the coach and we've done these self-imposed bans and some scholarships as far as U of A basketball goes, it might be enough. And it turned out it was pretty much enough. Will this be enough for ASU? I'm not so sure. This is still very fresh. This was recruiting violations during the COVID year and other violations they're looking into. Yes, Herm Edwards is gone. You're going to give the 1-year ban for postseason. Who knows? That they may say that's enough. It may not be enough. They may put a 2nd-year ban on them for postseason. We'll have to wait and see. Now, from a purely, because I have pure disdain for ASU, as you know. I'm not trying to feel sorry for them and coddle them, but you feel bad for the players who had nothing to do with it, and now the coaches are gone, and they might be still there, or then these new incoming players that had nothing to do with this whatsoever. So at some point, you do have to say, kind of like what would happen with U of A basketball, look, everybody's gone. What's the point of hurting this program any further? Maybe they'll say that with ASU. Maybe that's the kind of feeling most people have is, hey, these kids did nothing wrong. It wasn't their fault. It was the coach trying to run it like an NFL team. And guess what? College football is not an NFL team, and it didn't work.
Arizona does not want to be 5-6 going up to Tempe.
No.
This year. Now you could say, well, ASU is going to use that as their bowl game. Look, half the time, either U of A and or ASU is not going to be in a bowl game.
Yeah.
And that game is the bowl game. But can you imagine if ASU definitely doesn't have a game to play after that, and U of A is 5-6, meaning they can either go to a bowl or not go to a bowl based on how they do. Yeah. So U of A does not want to be 5-6 going up to Tempe. For
trying to get bowl eligible. Yeah, I think
that's
you're right.
You talk about U of A with the over under 5. I've seen some projections of them playing in the Sun Bowl, right? Which would give them 7 wins at least.
Not only 7 wins, but would put them in a very nice bowl game, very close, as you know, to be able to go over to El Paso. That'd be
6 is the New Mexico Bowl.
Yeah.
Right. Although they went to the New Mexico Bowl with how many wins did they have that year? No. They were 7-5 in 2012 when they went to the New Mexico Bowl. And that was like a celebratory situation because it was Rich Rod's first year. Mm-hmm. Then when they went to the New Mexico Bowl 3 years later, it was the year after the Fiesta Bowl. So the luster was kind of lost a little bit.
Yeah.
It turns out the biggest story of the game was Scooby Wright saying afterwards he was going to the NFL. So, would U of A sign up for the New Mexico Bowl at this point? Yeah. Right now, I want to be a little greedy and think Sun Bowl. That's how I'm feeling.
That'd be a nice bowl game.
Yeah, I hope I'm saying this correctly because I know they did the bowls change.
Yeah, they're
I know they've changed,
conference tie-in.
what conferences and all that, but even if it's not the Sun Bowl, I think you know what I mean. A bowl comparable to the Sun Bowl.
Yeah,
So
that would be nice. I
yeah,
think at this point, I think being bowl eligible and getting any bid to a bowl is good enough as we sit here in August. Now, if they're playing well and they get to 7 wins, you're going to be a little bit more picky and say, "Oh, we need to go to a better bowl game." But let's see if that is even an issue when we get to the end of the season.
yeah. All right, terrific. And props to the Arizona Bowl, $60,000 to nonprofits.
Yeah,
By the
it
way,
was a good story.
for those who aren't familiar, the New Mexico Bowl, I don't mean to pick on them, but they're owned and operated by ESPN. They're for profit. The Arizona Bowl is not for profit.
Yeah.
So while Barstool gave 7 figures to nonprofits and for-profits in Arizona, that's fantastic. The Arizona Bowl, separate from Barstool, gave $60,000 total to 10 nonprofits or charities or whatever you want to talk about. So if you missed that, that's my story on kgun9.com.
Yeah. And I can tell you, having that series I do every month, Giving Project, you think, oh, that's nice, $5,000, $8,000. It's a big deal to these charities. These charities that they're giving to are not the big name charities that everybody necessarily knows and maybe even contributes to. These are the charities that have very small budgets, very small operating budgets.
Felicia's Farm.
Yeah, they do great work. They help a lot of people. They just do it on a smaller scale than some of the big nonprofits do, and they deserve our help, and that's why we do the Giving Project, and that's why hats off to the Arizona Bowl and Ali Farhang and the gang over there. They do a great job.
Yeah, terrific. On that nice note, we'll end it there, and we'll be back here next week at this time. I'm likely talking about a U of A win over NAU and previewing what's ahead with Mississippi State. So that should be fun, and it'll be fun to go into now with the football and the basketball season.
Looking forward to it. Yeah,
our good season. We've got some fun stuff to talk about. For Pat Parris, I'm Jason Barr. It's been the Huddle here on KGUN 9. Thanks so much. We'll see you right back here next Tuesday at this time.